Hey everyone, what's going on? I know Prince Philip died about a week ago, but I finally have time to make a video, and his death is just so synced up to the same thing that I have been talking about for the last 3 or 4 months in regards to volcanoes. And I even have a few videos here that I just made back in March where I talked about volcanoes and how it was synced up to NASCAR and also synced up to the royal family. And I'll come back and explain this in a minute, but just notice, the day that Prince Philip died, the other two major stories were the death of DMX the rapper, and then a volcano that erupted in the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. And right away this sticks out to me, because DMX, he's a rapper associated with dogs, right? Where my dogs at and whatever, he's a rapper that's associated with dogs. And back in December when I first started noticing this narrative with volcanoes, there was a story about Queen Elizabeth and her dog named Vulcan that died. And I connected it to Leonard Nimoy, the actor who plays Spock on Star Trek, who's part Vulcan, and so on. But Vulcan is also the god of volcanoes, right? Vulcan. So Queen Elizabeth's dog, named Vulcan, died back in December, on December 4th, and then now her husband dies, and the same day he dies, there's a volcano that erupts on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. And what's so interesting is that I talked about how these volcanoes were important to the number 129. Like, a whole bunch of 129 was important to volcanoes. And then, on March 19th, which is 129 days after my birthday, there just so happened to be a volcano that erupted in Reykjavik, Iceland, and it was the first time this volcano had erupted in like 800 years or something. I can't remember the exact thing, but a whole lot of years, right? So what are the odds? I'm talking about how volcanoes are important to the number 129, and then 129 days after my birthday, a volcano erupts in Reykjavik, Iceland, and in the language of gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases, you can understand it by looking at some links in the description. But if you write out Reykjavik in that, it equals 129. And what was even more interesting was, in the early hours of that day, probably like 2 in the morning, my son actually woke up, and normally he doesn't wake up in the middle of the night, but he's 1.5 years old, and I just figured I'd let him play because he wasn't tired, and I decided to watch this random movie on Netflix. It just caught my eye, and I watched the movie. And it was a movie with Will Ferrell in it called Eurovision Song Contest. Can't remember the whole title, but basically the whole plot of the movie is that he's a guy from Iceland, and he's trying to get on the TV show Eurovision, right, and sing a song and whatever. But about 2 minutes or so into this movie, he's literally sings a song called Volcano Man that he wrote, right? Volcano Man. And then he's also from Iceland in this film. And then, later in that day, there's a volcano that erupts in Iceland 129 days after my birthday. I talk about how this all synced up to the number 129 and so on. And, even more interesting in saying this is that this volcano that erupted the same day as Prince Philip, the volcano was called, let me find it here, however you say this, La Soufriere, or how, I don't know. But notice that it equals 129 in this language of gematria. And the last time that it erupted was in 1979, which was the same year that St. Vincent gained its independence from the UK. And 79 is important to Mount Vesuvius that erupted in the year 79 and a whole lot more that I've talked about, right? And maybe I'll come back to that, but just notice, the volcano equaled 129, yet again, syncing up to this same pattern. And what else is even interesting is that I had a bunch of synchronicity with Rambo from the Gematria effect, and I pointed out how I thought the number 49 was also important because Rambo equaled 49, and how the date 129 is 49 days after my birthday. And I also pointed out how when this volcano erupted in Iceland, it was also 4 months and 9 days after my birthday. 49 and 129, right? And, just think about this, right? Think about it. Prince Philip, who just died on the date 4/9 of all days, 49, and then a volcano that erupts that same day, and the volcano equals 129. You know, what are the odds of this? And I'll get even deeper into this number here in a minute here, because in these videos, so I later went on, a few days after this volcano, we had the death of the actor Houston Tumlin, who's famous for playing the son of Will Ferrell's character on the movie Talladega Nights. And he supposedly died at the age of 28, and he died on the 82nd day of the year. And if you write out volcano, it equals 28 and also 82 in the language of gematria. And when I started thinking about Talladega Nights, I started thinking about how in 2019, I predicted that a racer would die on the date August 31st because it was synced up to the royal family. And I talked about this in these videos, right? How it was synced up to the royal family. Believe it or not, I even talked about how this Japanese earthquake was important to Prince Philip. And that was on December 13th. And Prince Philip got hospitalized 3 days later, and he was hospitalized for 28 days. Remember, volcano equals 28. But anyway, in 2019, when I predicted a racer would die on August 31st, I talked about how it was synced up to the royal family in France, and how Princess Diana died on August 31st in France. And what else stuck out to me was that my son, who woke up in the middle of the night, his birthday just so happens to be August 31st, 2019. So he woke up in the middle of the night that night, and it was the exact same day that I had predicted a racer would die. And then a French racer did die on that day, named Antoine Hubert. But the whole reason I thought all of that was going to happen in 2019 was because Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s mother had died. And I re-looked up Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s death, and he just so happened to die age 49 on the 49th day of the year. And then I found that the NASCAR was founded in the year 49. And I looked up the the founder of NASCAR, and it just so happened to be a guy named Bill France. And earlier in that year, somebody had asked me to do an interview, and I saw they had a bunch of stuff about Napoleon, so I looked into France and the French Revolution and so on, and I learned that in 2019, on August 10th, it was going to be the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. And French monarchy just so happens to equal, well, I spelled it wrong, but 227, along with French Revolution equals 227. The French Revolution began by an assembly of the Estates General. That equals 227. And I pointed out how it was going to be the 227th year of the French monarchy falling, and also how Napoleon, the French emperor, his birthday just so happened to be on August 15th, the 227th day of the year. And this is interesting to the number 49, because the 49th prime number is 227. And remember, Dale Earnhardt Jr. also supposedly got in a plane crash that year on August 15th, the 227th day of the year, which is Napoleon's birthday in history. And he supposedly got in a plane crash at Elizabethton Airport. Think about Queen Elizabeth and so on, right? And I'm talking about how there's a death that's going to be synced to France on August 31st, which is the anniversary of Princess Diana dying in France, right? And what sticks out even more is that earlier in 2019, Prince Philip just so happened to be in a car crash, and he was in a car crash 227 days before August 31st that year, right? So now Prince Philip is just so happens to die on the date 4/9, right? That's synced up to the number 227. And if you go back and look at the story where Queen Elizabeth's dog died, I connected it to Leonard Nimoy, who plays Spock on Star Trek, and Spock is part Vulcan, right? And Leonard Nimoy just happened to die on 2/27 of all days, right? 2/27. And this Queen Elizabeth's dog died 227 days after her own birthday, right? So her dog dies 227 days after her birthday. Think about DMX dogs, like I said. You know, now Prince Philip dies on 4/9. And 49 is this other number that I have talked about for a long time with Queen Elizabeth, since like 2014. I noticed this pattern. 9/11 happened in Queen Elizabeth's 49th year of being the queen, right? And then after 9/11 in 2002, on the date February 9th, her sister, Princess Margaret, died. And then 49 days later, her mother died. And then they were both buried on the date 4/9. And also, Prince Charles also married his second wife after Princess Diana, Princess Camilla. He married his second wife on the date 4/9. And there's a new movie or new series or movie coming out called Spencer, I think it is. And it's going to star Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana. And notice her birthday, 4/9. Right? It's this number I've been talking about a lot. And now Prince Philip ends up dying on 4/9 of all days. And what's even more interesting is that, like, Queen Elizabeth's mother, Queen Elizabeth, her mother, her birthday just so happens to be August 4th, or it was August 4th. She's, not alive anymore, but August 4th just so happens to be the same day that Meghan Markle was born, and Meghan Markle is related to the royal family through this lady's bloodline, right? And they share the same birthday. And what's even more interesting about the date August 4th is that August 4th is the same day that Talladega Nights came out in history. Or whatever, on 2006. Talladega Nights came out. Just after that Volcano, the racer who won the NASCAR race was, after Houston Tumlin died, the guy from this movie, the racer that won the race was Joey Logano. And Joey Logano's nickname is Sliced Bread. And once again, go back to this movie. If you've ever seen this movie, Will Ferrell, he drives the Wonder Bread car, right? And I even talked about that in 2019, how it was important to Joey Logano having the nickname Sliced Bread. And then Joey Logano so happens to win the race the day after one of the actors from Talladega Nights dies, right? I also talked about how Chase Elliott won the race in Talladega that year. And Chase Elliott equals 129, and that was right after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s mother had died, right? And so Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s mother died, then Chase Elliott, also, he won the race, and Chase Elliott also used to drive in a car that Dale Earnhardt was going to attribute to his father at Darlington and Darlington Raceway's 227, and so on. And that was going to be on August 31st. That's why another reason why that date was so important. But, what are the odds? Chase Elliott, 129, and there's actually going to be a race coming up on the 129th day of the year, too. That I can't remember. Maybe I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit. But what I just recently found out just a little bit ago was, it's funny that I'm even connecting all this to volcanoes. And oddly enough, the winner of the race every year at Talladega, they win a Vulcan trophy. They win a statue of the god Vulcan, of all things, right? What are the odds of that, right? They win a statue of the god Vulcan at Talladega, and I'm connecting it to volcanoes and Vulcan and Queen Elizabeth's dog, and, in the Francis Bacon ciphers, the word Vulcan equals 99. And I've talked all about these Francis Bacon ciphers and how they were important to that same narrative with the royal family and NASCAR and so on, right? So Vulcan 99, April 9th, 4/9 is the 99th day of the year, and Prince Philip just so happened to die at the age of 99. And this stands out to me too because the date 9/9 is very important to America and also Queen Elizabeth, because Queen Elizabeth became the longest reigning British English monarch of all time on the date 9/9 of 2015, which was in the 239th year of the United States. And, that was the same year Pope Francis came to the White House, and he went to the White House on the date 23/9, and that's the 52nd prime number, 239 is, and then 52 days after that, we had the ISIS attack in France, right? And ISIS equals 52, and Pope equals 52, and President 52, and White House 52, and Government 52, Kabbalah 52, Gematria 52. So there's something very important to how that syncs up. Queen Elizabeth 99. 99 is also the day that the United States of America got its name, the United States of America, right? And the United States, if you put the in front of it, it equals 99. But in history, 99 is the day that they got the name United States of America, right? So 99. And, in regards to Pope Francis, I should point out that it's interesting that when Prince Charles married Princess Camilla, he was actually supposed to be married on the date 4/8, but they rescheduled it to 4/9 because of the death of Pope John Paul II, right? So, I don't know, there's just an interesting parallel there. Talked all about how the royal family is, synced up to the Catholic Church, and they want you to think that they're not the same, they want you to think that they're somehow divided, but really it's all one and the same. It's all this big manipulation and control or whatever, but, it's important. And another interesting thing is that Prince Philip, he's actually exactly 1,776 days older than Queen Elizabeth. Let me pull this up really quick. Something I figured out, I don't even know, it's probably before I even knew gematria, I noticed this pattern with Queen Elizabeth and her husband. So his birthday was 6/10/1921, and her birthday is 4/21/1926. Look at that. He's exactly 1,776 days older, like 1776, reminding us of America. And in the Jewish cipher, let me pull up the Jewish cipher here, but in the Jewish cipher, America just so happens to equal 129, so, and 49, right? Look at this. So, what are the odds of this? 49 and 129, synced up to, Prince Philip dying the same day as a volcano on 4/9. I mean, there's something important to how this links up to America, right? And right now we're currently in the 244th year of the United States. And if Queen Elizabeth does die, her son will become King Charles III. That equals 244, right? And we're in the 244th year of the United States. Princess Diana, the anniversary of her death back on August 31st of 2020 was the 244th day of the year because it was a leap year, and that was also in the 244th year of the United States. So there's something very, very interesting about this pattern, right? And her dog dying, and of course dog equals 26, and she was born in the year 26, and the word queen equals 26 and 62. She became the queen on 2/6, and her coronation was on 6/2, and Prince Philip just died 62 days before his birthday, right? The word queen equals that. In one of these recent videos too, I talked about Queen Elizabeth and YouTube giving my old video in 2014 a copyright strike, and how it was important to Queen Elizabeth and Ramona Quimby, age 8. And then Beverly Cleary died like a couple days later, and Beverly Cleary is the lady who wrote the book Ramona Quimby, age 8 or whatever. So I'm just trying to figure out this narrative here. It's all synced up to earthquakes, volcanoes. Let me go back here, but yeah, Prince Philip, he died 62 days before his birthday. You know what else is interesting is that, his if you go from his birthday to the anniversary of Princess Diana dying, it's 82 days, right? And remember, volcano equals 28, 82. Prince Philip was hospitalized earlier this year for 28 days. Move over to this one. Just want to go back here. So What's funny too, also in that video where I talked about Ramona Quimby, the whole video actually was about this movie called The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And if you watch that movie, he actually lands inside of a volcano and he ends up like kissing Vulcan's wife. And Vulcan's wife just so happens to be Venus. And the planet Venus is the planet that has the most volcanoes on it. So, you know, DMX, the dog, Prince, you know, Queen Elizabeth's dog dying. Her dog was also a Dorgy. Dorgy's 28. It was called Vulcan. Volcano 28. Vulcan's also 73, and they were married for 73 years, and then Prince Philip dies in, you know, the year 21, and the 21st prime number is 73. That volcano also equals 168, the one that erupted on the same day he died. And Queen Elizabeth equals 168. Queen Elizabeth II. And also in the Francis Bacon ciphers, it's 220. And, you know, Prince Charles is 220. And Prince Philip died 220 days, also 7 months and 6 days before Prince Charles's birthday. And Prince Charles equals 76 and 220. America, though, that's what's getting me. It makes me wonder if there's going to be a volcano eruption in America, you know. Talked about Hawaii back in December, and then, you know, we got a volcano eruption just like 12 or 13 days or 14, maybe it's 2 weeks later, there was a volcano eruption on December 20th in Hawaii. And I talked about how I thought Hawaii was important to volcanoes, and then we got another volcano eruption for the first time since 2018. And that's also interesting because if you go back and watch this video about the Japanese earthquake that happened the day after that volcano erupted, there was another Japanese earthquake on the date 3/20. And I talked about how these were all synced up to the Royal Rumble of 2018 and Ronda Rousey turning 34 years old. And we just had the 34th Royal Rumble. And think about Royal Rumble in regards to earthquakes and also in regards to the royal family. And then later that year, we had the Crown Jewel and a whole bunch of stuff with it. But I talked about how that was synced up to Prince Philip. So then we get this Japanese earthquake on 2/13, and then another one on 3/20, and then the Francis Bacon ciphers Los Angeles equals 213 and also 320. But the moral of the story is I talked about how it was important to Prince Philip like crazy. So we had that volcano eruption in Hawaii in 2018, synced up to North Korea, the North Korean missile scare, and North Korea, Kim Jong-un equals 129. So that's something to think about. Kim Jong-un, but, you know, Kim Jong-un is also important because of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, because Megxit actually happened, or, you know, when they announced they're going to leave the royal family, that happened to be on January 8th, which was Kim Jong-un's birthday. So there's something important to that too, with North Korea and Kim Jong-un. I actually had synchronicity with Dennis Rodman at work today too, and what's funny is, I can't remember how the conversation started, but we were talking about basketball, girls basketball or something, and I was Dennis Rodman one year for Halloween, and like I had like plastic cups as boobs, and I was like, yeah, like I can't imagine girls being good at basketball or something because like the boobs would get in the way, because like when I tried to spin the ball in my chest it would block or whatever and so on. But I was talking about that. I can't even remember how it all went, but I was talking about that at work, and then I went to I got a notification on my phone, and it said something about Queen Elizabeth and the death of Prince Philip, and I clicked on the link, and the link took me to a story about Dennis Rodman's daughter who plays soccer or whatever, and I was just like, what in the world? Why would it do that, you know? So that, I feel like there's something important to North Korea with, you know, Dennis Rodman and so on. whatever. It's just weird that I clicked on this link that came up on my phone, a notification. I clicked on it, and then it took me to a story about Dennis Rodman's daughter, and the Chicago Bulls are also important. I'll talk about this in a few minutes here, but Chicago Bulls equal 49 as well. And there's a Teen Wolf narrative with the Dante Wright story. And think about the word Dante and the movie Dante's Peak that is about volcanoes that I mentioned earlier. But another synchronicity too, like I had a synchronicity. We'll just go back and talk about the Chase Elliott one. I feel like I pulled it up somewhere. In regards to the number 129. So, on April 1st, I think it was, or at least it's when I blogged about it, I just kept seeing 129 all over at work. Like, my clock was at 129. I'd look at the oven and it said 1 minute, 29 seconds left, and just all kinds of stuff. I just kept seeing 129, and then I randomly checked my phone at 129, and there was a notification that came up about Chase Elliott, right? And his name equals 129 on my phone, and how he's going to be doing a tribute to Alan Kulwicki with the 1992 championship paint scheme. And he was a guy who won the race in 1992 with the final race of the year. Or I can't remember. I'll have to read through. I don't know that much about NASCAR, but I was reading about it. He was important in 1992. That's all we really need to know, but you can read about the story. But, Chase Elliott, 129. And what's interesting, he's doing this at Darlington. Apparently at Darlington is where they do all these tributes. That's why Dale Earnhardt did that tribute to his father in 2019 on August 31st, the day that I thought, something to sync up to France and a racer would die, and then a French racer died. But what's interesting about this race in Darlington, it's going to be on 5/9, which is the 129th day of the year. So that race, I'm definitely going to be, I'm probably not going to watch it, but I'll look at whatever. I'm going to keep an eye on it and look at whatever NASCAR.com shows or who wins and all that. But there's something interesting to it. 5/9, the 129th day of the year. They race again. Darlington gets another race on the date 9/5. So 5/9 and 9/5. And the only reason I even connected it was because there was a girl putting up these posters at work too of Kevin Harvick. And yeah, so whatever, you can see it, but it's about NASCAR. And I was like, why are you putting up 3 of the same signs? And I realized that one's like a 12-pack of beer, and one's an 18, and one's a case of beer or whatever. But I ended up looking up Alan Kulwicki, the guy he's going to be tributing, and the day that I looked it up just so happened to be exactly 28 years after this guy died, right? Volcano 28. But this guy actually, I'll have to read it here, but Alan Kulwicki won the 1992 Winston Cup in the Hooters car after the Hooters 500. Although Bill Elliott, Chase Elliott's father, won the race, Alan won in points to win the cup. Davey Allison led most of the year, but Kulwicki ended up winning the cup, right? Okay, so there was a famous race at the end of the season where Bill Elliott won the race, but he still didn't win the cup, and he lost to Alan Kulwicki. And then this other guy, Davey Allison, led in points for the whole NASCAR season pretty much, and so on. But what's interesting about it is Davey Allison and also Alan Kulwicki, they both just so happened to die the next season in plane and helicopter crashes, right? And doesn't that remind you of 2019 when Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in a plane crash on Napoleon's birthday? And then a month later on Prince Harry's birthday, there was another NASCAR guy named Mike Stefanik who died in a plane crash, right? Just interesting in regards to that year. And it also reminds you of Kobe Bryant, right? The one guy died in a helicopter crash. And that same day there was a story about Kobe Bryant's former home and so on, right? Sold for $2.6 billion. Of course, Bryant's 26 and whatever, It was also 2 months and 6 days after the 26th day of the year that Kobe Bryant died on and whatever. But Kobe Bryant, his birthday is August 23rd, which just so happens to be the day that Vulcanalia is celebrated, right? The celebration of the god Vulcan. Kobe Bryant's birthday, August 23rd, Vulcanalia. Like, what are the odds of this, right? And Kobe has forever reminded me of Jeff Gordon when he retired, because when Kobe announced his retirement with the poem Dear Basketball, it was in November of 2015. And that was also the same month that Jeff Gordon finished his final ever race, right? And, you know, whatever. There's a whole lot to it, but Jeff Gordon was the number 24, and Kobe Bryant also wore the number 24, and I always just, like, thought there was this relationship, because I've always joked that Jeff Gordon's my favorite racer, because back in the day when I'd go to the bar, they had these, like, contests, and I always ended up somehow drawing Jeff Gordon out of the hat, and Jeff Gordon won a bunch of races that year, and he won me a whole bunch of money. And so I always loved Jeff Gordon for that, and I just jokingly, because I don't really watch NASCAR or whatever that much, but I jokingly, like, just said he's my favorite racer, and there's a bunch of these bikers who just absolutely hate him, and so on, and so you'd always be, like, kind of quiet, like, you'd be like, come on, win me some money, but then, you know, you didn't want the biker to beat your ass, you know, but whatever. Moral of the story, they both had number 24, and Kobe Bryant has always been one of my favorite players. I was a huge Laker fan, so I just think of Jeff Gordon. I even wrote in here, I was looking at Jeff Gordon, and I was like, the 129th day is 2 months and 27 days before Jeff Gordon's birthday, and Jeff Gordon's birthday is also August 4th, which just so happens to be the same day Talladega Nights came out. Something I talked about in 2019, how Jeff Gordon is important. And Jeff Gordon also just so happens to be 29 years old, or 49 years old. Look at Jeff Gordon here. So Jeff Gordon, he's also currently 49 years old, right? This other number with with volcanoes, right? 49 years old. The race in Darlington is the one that was important to the racer dying in 2019. And now this year, on the 129th day of the year, there's going to be a race in Darlington again, which is 2 months and 27 days before Jeff Gordon's birthday. And, you know, what are the odds that just a week later, Jeff Gordon tested positive for COVID-19? I mean, that was the story of the news, that Jeff Gordon, he says that he tested positive a week before this, right? Which was right around the same time that I was even blogging about that, right? But he came out on April 8th and said that he had COVID. And now he's going to come back for the Martinsville race to announce it and so on. It's just like, you got to be kidding me. So Jeff Gordon gets coronavirus, supposedly. I never did look at the date. Let me look at the date here. What's 4/8 to his birthday? 4/8 and 8/4 even. Think about that, right? 48, 84. It's an interesting number, just in regards to death and so on, but who knows? It's a number that we've associated with death a lot, right? Because death equals 118, so 98th day of the year, 216th day of the year. This day is super important to Queen Elizabeth as well, who became the Queen 2 months and 6 days before her birthday. And it's super important to Meghan Markle, who's born on this day. And well, look it up really quick. I think Jeff Gordon equals 55. Sure does. That's why that word retirement was so important back in 2015. Because retirement was also 55. And can't remember what it was with Kobe. There was something to do with the number 55 in that retirement as well. And I think him and Michael Jordan retired, like, the days were like 1 month and 27 days apart or something. Retirement equals 127. Can't remember it all, but whatever. Let's see what Martinsville is. That's what he's coming back to, right? Martinsville. See, this is just so ridiculous. We'll call Saturday's race at Martinsville. Stupid. Equals the same as Jeff Gordon, that's why. Damn. Let's see here. That'll be 22, 31 days later. Which reminds me of Houston. The race on 5/9, so I don't... I don't know, just trying to piece it together, but interesting, on 4-1, I talk about Jeff Gordon and the synchronicity with 129, and then now Jeff Gordon supposedly had coronavirus, and, what are the odds? Let's look at the Dante Wright shooting, right? So there's an interesting connection with this with Teen Wolf, and the reason is that well, for one, I'll just start from the beginning of this post. But when I first saw this story, I didn't even see this story because I haven't been motivated lately to even look into things. But I've had so much stuff going on and whatever. Just I had to learn a bunch of old songs for band gigs, and All for Nothing is like the least paying band gig ever. And we were playing at some place where supposedly Warren Buffett's favorite restaurant, and I had to buy new shoes and all this crap, and then barely got paid anything. But I had to learn all these old songs that I thought were going to be easy, but they were actually stupidly hard because there's so much to remember. But like the song King of the Road is the craziest bass line in the world. There's just so much going on with it. It's like I had so many songs I had to do to learn, but whatever. Really busy. But anyway, I looked at this story just the other day, the same day that I saw that they had canceled the Nets and Timberwolves game. And they canceled the Brooklyn Nets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves game after there is a shooting of a black man in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis or Minnesota, right? And then they canceled the Brooklyn Nets game of all things. And so I made a little thing and put it on Snapchat. And the reason, that just stuck out to me for, there's something going on with, Minneapolis again, and we got the George Floyd stuff going on. And just a few days before this, I saw that the actor who plays the dad on the movie Teen Wolf had died. And Teen Wolf, is important to the Minnesota Timberwolves. If you go back to 2015, I talked all about this Teen Wolf narrative and the NBA All-Star game and how Andrew Wiggins was a 19-year-old Minnesota Timberwolf, and he was the MVP of the Rising Star Challenge on February 13th, which is the first day of Lupercalia, the Wolf Festival. Then on the second day of Lupercalia, the Wolf Festival, Zach LaVine won the slam dunk contest, and he was also a 19-year-old Minnesota Timberwolf, and a whole lot more with that. Synced up to UCLA, and then just interesting, UCLA just made the Final Four, and so on. But like a week after that, Kevin Garnett got traded back to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Kevin Garnett was the original Teen Wolf, right? He was a 19-year-old Minnesota Timberwolf or whatever, right? So he got drafted when he was a teenager, played for the Timberwolves. There was this big Teen Wolf narrative. I talked about how it was, I watched the movie Teen Wolf and saw this Nebraska Cornhusker stuff in the background, and the movie, it says it wasn't set or filmed there at the time when I looked it up. And there's like palm trees in the movie that wouldn't be in Nebraska. So it really makes no sense. And it was all synced up to UCLA. And, that next season, UCLA and Nebraska played in the Foster Farms Bowl against each other in Levi Stadium. And Nebraska's important to Moses and the tribe of Levi. And that game was played in Levi Stadium where, the San Francisco 49ers played, where Colin Kaepernick took a knee. Whole lot more. Nebraska plays in the Sea of Red, and Moses parted the Red Sea, and it was synced up to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's why the Chiefs beat the 49ers in Super Bowl 54, and just so much more going on with it. But anyway, the dad from Teen Wolf died on 4/7, and then we got the death of Dante Wright on April 11th, and when I looked up the games that day, it said that the Timberwolves just so happened to play the Chicago Bulls, if I can find it here. They played the Chicago Bulls, and Karl Anthony Towns was the lead scorer for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the leading scorer for the Bulls was Zach LaVine, the Teen Wolf. And Karl Anthony Towns, believe it or not, in 2015, after that NBA All-Star week that I'm talking about, Karl Anthony Towns was a teen Minnesota Timberwolf to begin that season until his birthday when he turned 20 on November 15th. And November 15th is also the same day that the movie Space Jam came out. And that whole year I was talking about how the Golden State Warriors were going to win the NBA Finals, synced up to the movie Space Jam, and the Cavaliers had Kevin Love, who wore the number 0 like the Monstars, and that's why all the players got injured that year, like Derrick Rose and so on. But it's just so synced up. And then the Warriors won 122 days after Valentine's Day, the big day I was following with that big narrative with Michael Jordan and someone stealing Michael Jordan's jersey on Valentine's Day of like 1990, and he wore the number 45, and Valentine's the 45th day of the year. And the same day that Zach LaVine won that slam dunk contest, he wore the Space Jam jersey, and he won the slam dunk contest wearing the Space Jam jersey. And the next season, the Golden State Warriors drafted Kevon Looney. Think about Looney Tunes. And, Kevon Looney, he went to the Warriors after that. And that same day of Valentine's of 2015, he was the leading scorer, and he played for UCLA. And he was the leading scorer of his team. And Denzel Valentine of Michigan State made a game-winning shot on Valentine's Day. And, lo and behold, a few years later, the Chicago Bulls draft Denzel Valentine, and they give him the number 45, like how Valentine's is the 45th day of the year, like Michael Jordan's old number. And then they go and they trade for Zach LaVine. So now Zach LaVine and Denzel Valentine both play for the Chicago Bulls right now. Like, what are the odds of that? But, so now I'm just pointing all this out because, look, the Chicago Bulls played the Minnesota Timberwolves the same day Dante Wright supposedly got killed. Right after, and whatever, I'm not even getting into that, but that video didn't make any sense at all. But then the dad from Teen Wolf dies just before that, right? And of course, he died from Parkinson's that Michael J. Fox also has, right? And it's just crazy, but see what I put in here. There was a Japan earthquake in Los Angeles, like I said, and that was on the first day of Lupercalia, which is important to the Wolf Festival, right? And I wrote, think how Kobe Bryant's important to Japan, right? He's named after Japanese beef and a whole lot more with that, with the Kobe Japan and whatever. But I've talked about this important relationship to Japan and Los Angeles, and then we just had the Masters in golf that were won on the same day that Dante Wright was killed, and they were won by the Japanese golfer. And I looked at the movie Teen Wolf, and the movie Teen Wolf just so happened to come out on Kobe Bryant's 7th birthday, August 23rd, 1985, right? Which is also Vulcanalia that a few people, 7-1 pointed out to me on a video, and Skidmark commented that to me, but Vulcanalia. And 85 is this big number I've talked about with earthquakes over the years, so. And then in gematria, volcano equals 107, and so does earthquake, and they also equal 213. And like I said, Los Angeles is in the 213 area code. Los Angeles equals 213. Kobe being Bryant equals 213. The word earthquake equals 213. Volcano equals 213 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Think about Los Angeles and earthquakes. Golden Gate Bridge equals 213. There's something going on with it. But also, the Masters was a tribute to Tiger Woods, and Tiger Woods got married on Kobe Bryant's birthday in history. If you look up Tiger Woods and his wife, they were married on Kobe Bryant's birthday. And, think about how Tiger's a black and Asian, right? The Asian golfer, then the Japanese golfer wins the Masters. Tiger even did like the 8-foot, 24-inch or whatever it was, an 824 putt in Los Angeles, like a couple weeks after Kobe died. They said that was a tribute to Kobe Bryant. Of course, Tiger Woods forever talked about the number 54 with stories of Tiger Woods, and then Tiger Woods gets in a car wreck on the 54th day of the year, and his name frontwards and backwards equals 54. Just like how Kobe being Bryant equals 54. And such a joke. But I also talked about the NBA All-Star game and how Team LeBron won with the target score was 170 points, and then can't remember what the total score was, but it was synced up to the Lakers. But Brooklyn Nets equal 170, and the Lakers just beat the Nets the night before the shooting or whatever, the Dante Wright shooting, and they beat them 126 to 101. And remember, Kobe died on 126, and just so much going on with it. It was synced up to the death of Jerry Buss and Dwight Howard being on the team, and DeMarcus Cousins tearing his Achilles on 126, exactly 2 years before Kobe Bryant died, and a whole lot more. But 126, 101 reminds me of Philadelphia, and of course Kobe's originally from Philadelphia. Philadelphia equals 101 in gematria, and remember how LeBron broke Kobe's scoring record in Philadelphia the night before Kobe Bryant died, and whatever. Now the 76ers are winning the Eastern Conference currently. But Zach LaVine also equals 101, and Zach LaVine equals 47. The dad from Teen Wolf died on 4/7. The Dante Wright shooting was on the 101st day of the year. He's age 20, Wolf equals 20. The Japanese guy who won the Masters was born on the 56th day of the year, like how Wolf equals 56, like how Kevin Garnett equals 56, like how the character of Michael J. Fox in the movie is Scott Howard that equals 56, and a whole lot more, Also think about what's the coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers right now? I can't think of the guy's name. It escapes me, but he had the ties to the Chicago Bulls and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now he's the basketball coach for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, right? And once again, think about that big Teen Wolf narrative. I can't believe I can't remember that right now, but I can't think of the guy's name. Not Fred Hoiberg, but I have a video on it somewhere. You can just type in Teen Wolf, I'm sure you'll find it, but this also came after Dennis Schroeder, however you say the guy's name, the guy for the Lakers who's actually from Germany, and he called Kyrie Irving the N-word, right? Think about Germany and Japan and World War and Dante Wright being murdered on 11/4 or 4/11, and World War's 114, LeBron James 114, Minneapolis, Minnesota 114. But notice the Timberwolves played the 76ers on January 29th this year, and I'm going to pay attention to the 76ers because I've been thinking it's the Brooklyn Nets, but there's some interesting things going on with how the 76ers are synced up to the Brooklyn Nets, if that makes sense. But remember earlier this year I was talking all about the They Live stuff, and I was watching the number 19, and then there was this big sync with the Lakers and the Bulls game, and it was all about the number 19. I can't remember it all. I'll have to go back and look. I just can't remember it all, but it was synced up to when YouTube restricted my video about Allen Iverson on the 65th day of the year when Zach LaVine hit the game winner, and Zach LaVine also equals 65, and Philadelphia equals 65, and it was founded on the day leaving 65 days in the year. And then YouTube took down my video completely on the date 6/5, and that it was all synced up to this. But I pointed out that the T-Wolves, their game was against the 76ers on 129 in that post. And think about that with earthquakes, and then Kim Jong-un 129 with World War. I know, hopefully this makes sense. I'm sorry, I can't remember all this stuff. But anyway, I'm just mentioning that because the T-Wolves played the 76ers on 129, and April 11th to Michael J. Fox's birthday is 1 month and 29 days. Also 59 days. Think how 5/9 is the 129th day of the year too. Michael J. Fox is also currently 59 years old. 59 is this number with black people, slave, Negro, and so on. Countless examples of 59 and black people all throughout history. I didn't put the picture in here, but Dante Wright also died 1 month and 29 days after Lupercalia began, the Wolf Festival, right? So 129 and then 1 month and 29 days before Michael J. Fox's birthday, who is the Teen Wolf, who also wears the number 42 in that movie. Makes you think of Fox 42, the TV channel. But the cop who shot Dante Wright was Kim Potter, who equals the same as Teen Wolf, also equals the same as Minneapolis, also equals the same as Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Notice how Brooklyn Center, Minnesota equals 127 and Kim Potter equals 127. And then this made-up game against the Brooklyn Nets versus the Timberwolves, and the Nets scored 127 points. But in the Francis Bacon ciphers that I pointed out back in January, that I was the post I'm talking about, I pointed out that Philadelphia equals 127, and the Lakers lost to Philadelphia on January 27th, 127. So there's a connection to the 76ers. And it wouldn't surprise me too, like, if, Kobe Bryant is connected to both of them teams, right? That's why they have Steve Nash as the coach, because Steve Nash was on the team when Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, and Dwight Howard was also on the team. We talked about this last year. But they announced that Steve Nash was going to be the coach of the Brooklyn Nets just before the Lakers won the finals last year. So they have this connection to Kobe, but, Kobe's from Philadelphia, so both of these teams have that relationship. And I wouldn't doubt if somehow, one team is going to play the Lakers this year in the finals or something like that, and then the next season the different team is going to play them. But who knows? It's just something, it's just a thought. But it's interesting how they both have that connection to Kobe. And of course, the Miami Heat equals 34, and that was a humongous number with Kobe's death. Like, probably the biggest number I talked about. I have a whole video on it. And then, the Lakers beat the Miami Heat. Shaquille O'Neal's, after Shaq, who wore number 34 with Kobe, left the Lakers, he went and played for the Heat, and Heat equal 34, and then the Heat lose to the Lakers in the NBA Finals right after Kobe Bryant dies, all synced up to the number 34. But Kim Potter was 28 years older than Dante Wright as well, Volcano 28. There's something interesting too. I looked up the notable people in Brooklyn, Minnesota, and it's the person who directed Joe Dirt. And it's funny because I was talking about Joe Dirt that same day, so I was just like, that's weird. And I looked up Joe Dirt, and Joe Dirt just so happened to come out the same day that Dante Wright died, April 11th. And this is even more interesting with the volcano narrative, because after that volcano, I think it was after the volcano, the race that was after the volcano in Iceland, the NASCAR race was in Bristol, and it was on a dirt track. And it hadn't been on a dirt track for like a whole bunch of years, so they had one on the dirt track. And then we got Joe Dirt. So David Spade's 56 years old right now. The number synced up to coronavirus, but also Wolf 56. I literally just watched the clip from Black Sheep the other day. Swear to God, if you watch that clip about the white mud, I don't know why. That clip can put anybody in a great mood, but back in around the time that the Lakers were in the playoffs and then they ended up winning the finals and so on, I talked about this narrative that was going on with the Rose theme, and then it led me to watch the movie Blade Runner 2049, and in that movie, they have a horse, a toy horse, and it has the date, or it has the numbers 6, 10, 21 written on the bottom of that horse, right? And I pointed out how that's interesting because that would have been Prince Philip's 100th birthday. I pointed this out back in like September last year. And, I talked about how Prince Philip was just all synced up to all these things. And then here we are, Prince Philip dies on 4/9, synced up to the volcano symbolism and so on. But Think about the movie Blade Runner 2049, right? 49 again, and then he dies on the date 4/9. His birthday, Prince Philip's birthday, was also 2 months and 13 days before Vulcanalia, and Volcano 213, Earthquake 213. Talked a little bit about William Shatner here, just because my band, I don't even know. I have a gig at the Dubliner, like a place in downtown Omaha, and with our new drummer. And for some reason, when my friend sent me the set list, he added this song, "Common People" by Pulp, which there's a remake with William Shatner on it. And then I'm sitting here going, what are the odds? You know, I'm noticing this pattern with Spock, and then now he's sending me to relearn this song with William Shatner in it. I looked up the guys, the members of the band Pulp, and one of the guys is named Steve Mackey, who has the same birthday as me, November 10th. And, of course, his name equals 120 died. 129 and 39. And his birthday this year will be my 39th birthday. He also plays bass, which is interesting because I play bass in the band that I'm in. Vulcanalia is 79 days before my birthday, also 2 months, 18 days. And 2 months, 18 days was, you know, if you go back and watch this video where I talked about the synchronicity with Rambo and so on, and how it's synced to volcanoes, is all to do with the number 218. 79 is important because Mount Vesuvius erupted in the year 79, and the guy from Teen Wolf, the dad on that movie, James Hampton, his birthday was 7/9. And if you don't believe me that all this is going on, so today, the major story in the news was about this black kid named Adam Toledo, who they released the footage of him getting shot by the police, right? And it was all about Chicago, right? On today. And the very same day, there's a story about the Bulls, Zach LaVine, expected to miss a bunch of games because of the health and safety protocol, right? So I'm talking about how the Dante Wright shooting is synced up to Teen Wolf and Zach LaVine. And, you know, here we are days later. The next big black guy getting shot in the media story is from Chicago. And then the Chicago Bulls player, Zach LaVine, is also in the news because he's going to be missing games. Chicago Bulls is 49. I went and looked up the winner of the race at, I think it was Bristol this year, the dirt race, right after the Volcano. And it was Ryan Blaney. And I don't know what this is about, but somebody went on there and they changed his birthday to December 31st of 1912. And then I went and looked and sent to see when they did it. And it was just like, 3 hours before I noticed it. Because this is 18 minutes of 4:16, which would have, at the time, it was like 9 o'clock or something. So a little after 9 o'clock, I think, is when I noticed this. So whoever did this is 3 hours east of me, 3 hours time zone. But notice they originally put 1776 and then they fixed it to 1912. Like, just thinking about that. America, and then 1912. It has to be some type of joke with the Titanic, doesn't it? Right? The Titanic that sank on April 15th, 1912. Could be wrong, but that's just what I'm thinking. Like, they do this on purpose. I swear it's almost like they knew that I was going to look up this guy. Why? Who would be doing that? Who is changing him, I have the number 12. It's interesting. He drives, I don't know that much. I need to study more NASCAR, but if he drives the number 12 and Chase Elliott drives the number 9, that's 129 as well. I don't know. I've also been talking about the date 4/16 a whole lot in regards to some narrative with Pope Francis and whatever, Pope Benedict, his birthday is today, I think. And today's 5 months and 6 days after my birthday. So we'll see if we get, what kind of stories we get, but this video is way longer than I actually intended it to even be, but there's just so much going on, and sometimes I haven't made a video forever either. I could just talk for hours, I feel like, but things are getting a little better too, I'll tell you what. Like, pretty sure I woke up a kid at work the other day, and it was awesome. Some old guy came in the other day, and he said, you guys get your vaccine yet? And I thought he was going to say, you better get your vaccine. And I was like, oh no, the old ladies in the back, they got it though. And blah, blah, blah. And then the guy goes, well, I ain't fucking getting it. And he started telling me about all this cool stuff about I don't even know what it was all about, but, well, I do know what it was all about, but something to do with how you can't even see coronavirus on a microscope, and, you know, a mask the mask can't even block like a particle so big, but, you know, all these people wearing masks, and, you know, if a particle that you can't even see is supposedly being blocked from this mask, but other things can get in, and none of it makes sense, and so on, right? And this guy just talked to me for like a half hour at Ruled. He was like, man, this guy is so cool. Because you don't meet guys like that every day. And he kept telling me, if you think I'm crazy, look it all up. And I'm going, I was like, you hear about Event 201? And he's like, yeah, I've heard about Event 201. And we talked about that for a bit. And I'm like, why do you think I think you're crazy? It doesn't make sense. I talk about this all the time, man. It's like, I tell the people at work how stupid this is every day. Like, you know, how the NBA All-Star bubble, they quarantine everybody and they test everybody and no one can leave, but yet they still got to wear a mask in there, which makes absolutely no sense. If you can't leave and no one has coronavirus, why are you wearing a mask? There's no point. Doesn't make any sense, but I also, this other kid that I work with, his name's Zach, and his mom is the one that's in the movie Children of the Corn, and there's a whole lot going on with this, but he was kind of making fun of me. I haven't worked with him forever, and he's kind of making fun of me about something with gematria, you know, because I talked about it a little bit before, and I just was like, screw this, man. I just started telling him all kinds of stuff, and it got to the point where he's just like asking me questions about history, you know, and I'm like, well, what do you want to know? And then he would say, you know, something. He would just ask a random thing like, what about the stock market crash? And I was like, oh, the one in 1929 when the only president from Iowa was the president, and Iowa's the 29th state, and Iowa has Interstate 29 that goes all the way through it north to south, and how, you know, the stock market crash was on the 29th day of the 10th month, and the 10th prime number is 29, and it was in the year 29, and then I went on to tell him about how when Chester Bennington died, 1929 was the same year as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and how when Chester Bennington died, I said there was something important to Valentine's Day because the St. Valentine's Day Massacre was in Lincoln Park of Chicago, and then just days after Chester Bennington died, we got a shooting of some rapper in Chicago, and then the guy from Home Alone, the dad, and Home Alone's based in Chicago, right? But the dad, John Hurd, died, and I was like, look at this, there's something important. And then we got the Stoneman Douglas shooting on Valentine's Day that next year after Chester Bennington had died, and so on. But, you know, just going off, just telling him all kinds of stuff, and whatever, you know. He'd ask me something about history, and he's just like, that's some crazy stuff. After a while, he's like, I'm like, well, yeah, when does it become coincidence, you know? And later on, he was up front, and I don't know why I went up and I told him about the number 42 in black people, and because he was listening to one, he went up front and he like searched gematria on his phone, and he found a bunch of Zach's videos, and he asked me, what is 47? And I started telling him all president, White House, whatever. And then I noticed he was listening to one of Zach's old videos or something. I was like, oh yeah, you should listen to these videos and get his book and all that and so on. And can't remember, but it sparked my brain because one of Zach's earliest things was about the Ferguson, Missouri shooting and black people, right? So I told this kid about the number 42 and black people. And I told him how Ferguson's 42 and Missouri's 42, and how Michael Brown equals 60, like the N-word. But I said, then a few days later, the media gave us they showed us a picture of the cop who supposedly killed Michael Brown. He's wearing a number 42 on his, like a big number 42 on his shirt, right? And anyway, he's like, hold on a second. And he went outside because during Black History Month, he was like going into like Walmart or some store, and there was these people doing a raffle thing, and they were like, you would pay like $10 and you'd get a gift card, and it might have like $0 on it, or it might have $100 on it. And he paid $10 for it. And it was to honor Black History Month, right? So he went out and he's like, I wonder how much I got on this card. And he checked it, and it had $42.42. And he was like, you gotta be kidding me. Then I'm like, dude, this is what I'm talking about. It's random coincidence. It's not, this is the way the world works. Like, I was like, I'm supposed to have this conversation with you, and, and so on. I just have this feeling like it's all meant to be, and whatever. And he's just like mind blown, and then he's like, I got that. I paid $10 for that on February 19th. And then he goes, and you know what February 19th is? He goes, 2 plus 19 plus 21. He goes, that's 42. And I go, you're right. The date numerology of 42 even. And the card has $42.42 on it, right after I'm telling you about Black people and the number 42. And then he's like, I paid $10 for it, and 42 divided by 10 is even 4.2. And I'm like, dude, and you know what else? If you write out the word 10, it equals 42. And what else is interesting is if you write out this kid's name, it equals the same as if you write out the words 42. But he asked me what 219 meant. And I was like, well, 219 is interesting because it's the 50th day of the year, and my name equals 50. And this day that this happened was on the 100th day of the year, which is 50 days after the 50th day. And right after he asked me that, though, he's like, what's 219? But right when he's saying that, he looked at his phone, and it was 2:19 in the afternoon. And then he's like, how in the world? And I'm like, dude, like, he didn't mean to do it. He just randomly looked at his phone after he asked me what 219 was about, and it just so happened to be 219. And I'm like, this is kind of how it started for me when you started seeing 11:11 on the clock way back in the day and whatever. So I think I made this kid a believer, but his mom was in the movie Children of the Corn that I talked about back in like September in this big synchronicity. And it had a lot to do with the number 194. And this kid told me his full name, and his full name, I think I put it in here. His full name just so happens to equal 194. And a big thing with that Children of the Corn post, and the one where I blogged about his mom being in the film Children of the Corn, it was all about Nick Cannon, who also equals 194, and, a whole lot more. But I went to CNN, like after I talked to him, I walked back in the kitchen and I went to CNN. And of course they had a story about Nick Cannon on the headline news. And this was, you know what? I wrote all this. I didn't even type any of this, even talk about Nick Cannon to him or anything out loud. But I just went to the kitchen, and then I noticed a story about Nick Cannon, and I was like, what are the odds of that? Because I knew that my old post was about Nick Cannon, like, right? So I didn't even say it out loud. It wasn't some algorithm that they could figure out, like by your phone or whatever, how sometimes they give you an ad. It was never even said. I went there and I was like, whoa, Nick Cannon's in the media. And then I was like, I know that Nick Cannon was a part of Children of the Corn. And then I go back and look it up, and so just so many synchronicities. I don't even know. Our school mascot, the school that he goes to and the one I went to, is a bulldog too. I don't know. It reminds me of Gonzaga Bulldogs and DMX and dogs, and Nick Cannon's full name even equals 219, but I don't know. But whatever, I'll leave the video there. I actually have to go to Omaha in the morning. Don't even get to sleep in on my day off because I won't go into it, but I bought a new car when my car broke down, and I took it in to get licensed, and they told me that the title was illegal. So I have to take it back to this dealership and figure out what the hell is going on with it. But whatever. Have a good one. Peace.